All right. Can you please introduce yourself and share what you're here to talk about?
Of course. So my name is Talia. I live between New York City and Montreal, Canada. And I basically have a YouTube channel where I showcase my dating life as a single 30-year-old girl and all the craziness that comes from it, the good, the bad, the ugly. Basically, just super transparent about things that maybe I shouldn't be.
What I love about your YouTube channel is like you're not sugarcoating it. You're not trying to come off like cool or like you know it all. Like you're very honest as if you were just like talking to your best friend about, holy shit, these are all the things that are happening to me. Like this is crazy.
Yeah. But basically, I kind of wanted it to be like a lot of people are very scared to talk about things that happen to them because they feel like they might get backlash or they might get, a whole bunch of hate. And it's like, you know what? I put it out there. Do I get the hate? 1,000%. But this is what dating as a single person is like now. You will get ghosted, you will run into craziness, but just that's the way it is. Like,
Totally. What made you want to start it? Because that is, like you said, like it's afraid, it's a scary thing where you could be afraid to get judged or to get hate, but you didn't care. You felt like you had a message to put out there.
of course. So, I mean, I guess we go back to like last year. I was in a long distance relationship, which I talk about on the channel too. And I thought it was like it. So, I lived in Montreal, he lived in New York. So, I was traveling back and forth and spending a lot of time in New York City. And I was like, this is it. I'm going to uproot my life, going to go live there. And then it ended and it crushed me. And I had no clue. I kind of like lost my sense of self. And it took a long time to get over it, which is good. Like, you should definitely take the time that you need. But I just felt like, okay, like I'm at a crossroads in my life. I felt like everything that I knew came crashing down. And I'm like, I started to question the people in my life, my career choices, just everything. And I was like, I need to make a change. And I'm like, this happens in dating. You will get hurt. But I also want to showcase the fact that dating is fun. And it's like you get to go out and you get to try new restaurants and try new bars and meet like the coolest people. And it's for me, like, I've honestly had so much fun with dating. Like, there's not been a day in the last 6 months where I'm like, oh my God, I hate my life. Never. I'm like, you know what? I've met so many cool people that it might not have worked out with, but who cares? I learned something from it. And I learned something cool about their jobs and their background. And, I could like recite so many fun facts now, but it's just dating's been a journey and I'm just having fun with it. And I want people to see that, like, you can have fun with it too. The girls that go and cry on TikTok, like, do what you want, but that's not the way that I choose to go about it.
I am freaking out because everything that you're saying is like the mindset that I want to ingrain in everybody. And I know it's so much easier said than done. But like you said, like you went through a really hard and terrible breakup. And after a while, like after you felt your feelings, you cried it out, like you decided, I'm not going to let this thing that happened to me control my life anymore. This is my life and I get to live it. And guess what? I choose to have fun with it.
Exactly. And it's honestly, it's been the craziest ride. And like, I couldn't have predicted half of what happened to me. But I also think that like, I had to look inwards and realize that like, and this will be very controversial, but I had to realize that like, I was the problem for a long time. I kept going for men who were emotionally unavailable. And I realized it was like the same pattern. It was like I was dating a different guy, but they were the same at the foundation of it. And I had to realize that like I was the problem. And so I had to fix myself before I put myself back out there so that that didn't happen again. And a lot of people, it's very easy to like point the finger at other people and be like, oh, all men are like this or all women are like this. And it's just not true. And then the second that you fix yourself, you align yourself with people that are good and you see that there's so many good men out there, you know?
Totally.
It's
How did you come to the realization that you were going for the same guy in different font?
because it would so basically every time I would date and I would end up like seeing someone, it would start off like really well, like kind of almost love bombing type of way, like, and then it would just end just as quick. And I was like, wow, like the second things started to get serious, that's when they would flee. Like, I mean, there's no
Mhm.
other way to put it. And I was like, okay, this keeps happening to me. Like, yeah, of course, there's lots of, awful people out there, but it's just, why does it keep happening to me? And I know a lot of women that it happens to. And I could have put myself in therapy or whatever, but I was like, you know what? I could do this myself. I could figure it out. So I started to delve deeper into psychology in like dating psychology, which is super interesting. and just realize that, okay, there's a part of me that's emotionally unavailable. And that's why I keep going for men that are emotionally unavailable. So I need to fix myself and then put myself back out there. And I've
That
seen
is
such a difference.
so awesome that you took it upon yourself to really put time and effort and thought into why does this keep happening to me? Because like you said, like we like to blame other people or like we could never be the problem. And it's okay if we are. Oftentimes we
Mm-hmm.
are in our own way. We are holding ourselves back and we can sit there and be like, woe is me, everything sucks. I'm never
Yeah.
going to find somebody. Everyone does the same thing to me, or we can do something to change. So I'd love to hear like when you say like you fixed it or you fixed yourself, like how did you go about doing that?
So I think that like when you delve deeper into why people are emotionally unavailable, it literally comes down to being a self-worth issue, and that I didn't feel worthy of a good relationship, or one that was stable or one that was long lasting. And so I worked on my self-esteem. I got rid of toxic people in my life, and I took the time that I needed to grieve a relationship that I thought was it for me. And I even like, honestly, like, New York's always been a second home to me. Now I live between both cities, but I felt like I needed to take it upon myself to travel back to New York and make I realized that, like, yeah, of course, like, I associated New York with my relationship, but I had memories before him and I wanted to make new memories after him. And so I took it upon myself to go back and to put myself out there and meet new people. And, New York now is my story. It's not my story with him. It's my own journey now.
That is incredible. And I'm so
So,
proud of you for doing that. And I think that's something that we get so stuck in of like, well, I can't go to this neighborhood anymore. I can't go to my old favorite restaurants because they became our restaurants and he
yeah,
broke my heart. So now I associate it with him. Like, no, you have to take back your places
exactly.
and do the things that made you happy and made you feel full before they existed.
Exactly. And I also think that, like, looking back on it, you need to be grateful to everyone who's broken your heart. And I know that sounds awful, but like, if he hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be on this journey. So I'm so grateful to my last relationship and to him for showing me what I needed to see?
You and me both. I
Right?
absolutely would not be here doing what I'm doing now if it weren't for the people who literally like broke me so much that I thought I would never be okay again.
Exactly.
But guess what? Like no matter how broken you feel, no matter how at rock bottom you feel, like there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
We are living proof, both of
Yeah.
us. I feel like
And
our
it's a
journeys are
really bright
somewhat similar.
light.
Yeah.
Uh-huh, 100%. It's a really
Yeah.
bright light. Yeah. So, speaking of your taking back New York, I know you have crazy stories and one in particular that you emailed me
I
about.
do.
Let's
I
hear
do.
where should we begin?
Well, I can just go for it. I do want to
Go
preface
for
it
it.
by saying that, like, when I look back on what happened to me that one night, I kind of feel like the mind-blowing thing to me is that everything had to happen the way it did that night in order for the end result to be what it was. Like, it's kind of just nuts. So, okay, we'll take it back to, like, it was a Sunday night in New York City, and when I'm in New York City, I go on a date or two every night. We can go into that later, but dating in New York is fun. I know a lot of people hate it. I have a fun time with it. But I had a date at the Beekman Hotel from the First Rounds on Me app, which is my favorite app. I like Hinge too, but First Rounds on Me is really cool. For people that don't know what it is, basically you have your profile set up and men invite you for a drink at a specific day, time, and place. And the convo opens like a few hours before so you can confirm with them, whatever. So you're supposed to go to the Beekman Hotel, and the conversation opens, and he's like, I can't wait to see you. I'll see you at 8 o'clock. And I'm like, yeah, sure, okay. So I make my way to the Beekman Hotel, and it's like, I'm sitting there. I'm like, this is such a nice hotel. Like, it's beautiful. And 8 o'clock comes around, and this man's like nowhere to be found. And I'm like, okay, like, I'll give him 10 minutes. Like, I'm always someone on dates that's really early all the time because I like to like scope out the place, relax. But he was nowhere to be found. So I'm like, okay, maybe he messaged me on the app. So I open up my app and the match is not there anymore. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, maybe there's a bug in the app because it's somewhat new, right? So I close my phone and I reopen it and I'm like, no, it's literally like the match is not there anymore.
And I'm sure you were probably looking around at every man walking into the Beekman Hotel thinking like, is this the guy? And then they would go sit somewhere else. Is this the guy?
Literally,
And then they would go to their other date. Is that the guy? Nope, not walking towards me.
literally. I was like, okay, like, I don't know, maybe is there another door that like he could come into? Like, I don't know, you know? So I was like, okay, this is weird. Like, there's clearly no bug in the app. The conversation left. It's now 8:15 and there's no one here. And I'm sitting at the bar by myself. So in that moment, I was like, I have two options. I could either say, wow, my life sucks, or I can order a glass of wine. And I was like, I'm gonna take the second option. And I ordered a glass of wine. I sat there. It was really nice. But then I'm like, okay, it's really early. I'm in New York City. Like, what? I'm not gonna go home and do nothing. So because I live between both cities, when I go to New York, I stay in the same hotel all the time. So I'm like, you know what? Let me walk back to the hotel. I had a free drink voucher that I had to use. And I was like, let me just use it. So I walk back to the hotel. The people there, they know me because I stay at the same place all the time. So the hotel that I stay at, there's a rooftop bar and then there's a speakeasy in the basement. So I was like, okay, I go to the people at the reception. I'm like, what's better now? Like, where's there more people? What would you recommend? And they're like, well, have you been to the rooftop bar? And I'm like, no, I haven't. I've been to the speakeasy, but not the rooftop. So they look on the camera and they realize that there's only two people up there, but the sun is setting. So they're like, go upstairs. Honestly, go upstairs. I'm like, okay, like there's no one there, but I'll make a party by myself. Like, so I go upstairs and there's literally no one there except for one guy that's sitting next to me at a table by himself. And I like instantly recognize him. I'm like, wait a second. That's the guy that every time I go into the elevator, he's like there. Like
Oh
not
my
in a creepy
God.
way. Like he's not stalking me or
Yeah.
anything. Just like he's there, you know? So
This this already feels like a movie scene where it's like it's an empty rooftop bar. Like he's there at one table, you're there at the other table. Like
literally,
eventually, unless like he has a date coming to meet him, like
you don't
eventually you
know,
guys are gonna
right?
have no choice but to talk.
Right. And I didn't know who he was. Obviously, he would say hi to me in the elevator, but like when you get into an empty elevator, like you say hi. Like it's etiquette, right?
Right.
So he starts talking to me, and he's this French guy visiting from France, on his way to China the next day. And so we start talking, and because I'm from Montreal, I can speak French fluently. So we start talking in French, and he's telling me about his life and like, you know, what he does for a living. I'm telling him what I do for a living. We talk about New York because he used to live there. The rooftop bar has like two levels. So we go to the top level and we're like watching the sunset together, just talking.
I
And
can't
then
believe you're
the
also
bar,
speaking in French, both of you. Like again, movie.
right. No, I know. I look back and I'm like, what is my life? Like, I don't know.
Literally.
Anyway, so basically, like, then the bartender comes to us and he's like, okay, well, we're shutting the place down. So the guy turns to me and he's like, do you want to go for another drink? And I'm like, well, you know, there's a speakeasy in the basement and there's jazz music there. He's like, no, I had no clue. I'm like, let's just go there. Like, I'm not going to start thinking of places in Tribeca off the top of my head that could be booked. Like, let's just go there.
Not going back to the Beekman.
No, definitely not. Unless the guy's sitting there waiting for me. I don't know. But I definitely got stood up, and that's a first. But so basically I go downstairs and we're talking, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, yapping his ear off, basically. No, I'm kidding, but we're laughing and we're having a good time. And you know when someone's like staring at you, like something's like off or like whatever, and you're like, what? You know? So I was basically like, what? And then he turns and he kisses me. I'm
Oh my
like, what
God.
is going on? Like, I don't, like, what is going on? I was like kind of in shock, but I was like, okay. So I
Did
just went with
you
it.
were you actually in shock or were you like the vibes are vibing, like
The
this could
vibes were
lead somewhere?
thriving, but like obviously because of the French, like we understand French culture, we're both like whatever, but I was still kind of like, I'm not technically on a date with you. Do you know?
Right.
It's not like a set up thing. So I was like,
Mhm.
like I'm just talking to a stranger at a bar.
What were you guys talking about? Like, were you talking about your lives? Did dating come up at all? Like, did you mention you had gotten stood up? Like, what were the conversations actually
Right.
like?
So we basically like a lot of what we talked about was travel related because he traveled a lot for his job. So we were just talking about, you know, China and like I'm a big traveler, so we had that in common. We were talking about French culture. We were talking about New York City because he had lived there before. And so I was like, have you ever stayed at this hotel before? That was the other thing. He'd never stayed at this hotel before. So that was like
Mm,
also like, okay, like you had to stay here for this to all like it was just
yep.
strange. So I was like, okay, like the conversation was really just about like things that we had in common and where we had been during our trip, and he was like, I'm here for 2 days to visit my niece and my nephew who are here before going to China for work. And I was like, oh, okay, like whatever. But like we were vibing, but whatever. And he had a beautiful accent, and I was like, oh, but so then he kisses me, and I'm like, what is going on? So we continue the conversation, and he kisses me some more, and then we go back to my room,
Oh my
which I
God.
never do. And we hooked up, and then we were just lying there, and then he's like, by the way, I'm married. And I was like, yeah, I was like,
What?
and then I made a joke because in awkward situations, I like don't know what to do. So I make a joke. And he's like, I have 2 kids. And I'm like, and
Oh
then part of me was
my
like,
God.
what do I do? Like, what do I say? I'm not going to kick him out because like that would just
Like the
make
damage is done.
like, yeah, like there's nothing I could do now, you know?
Oh my
But it's
God.
like,
What
I mean, I'm not going to blame it on French culture, but like that is cheating, is open relationships is part of French culture. But you don't
did
ask someone, are
he
you married? You can't ask that
right.
question, So there was no way of me knowing.
Did your like stomach drop? Like how when he said that, like how did you genuinely feel?
I
Because
was
I'm
like,
freaking out.
I was like, what? Like I couldn't even comprehend what had just happened. Like just like up until that point, I couldn't even comprehend what had happened. And then he just dropped a bomb on me. And then it was like even more like, what is going on? Like what is going on in my life?
Oh my God. Okay. So you
So
guys are like still laying there in your hotel room.
literally, and then he's like, then after that, it was like we lied there for a bit, and then he's like, "Okay, I gotta go," because he had a flight at like 6 o'clock in the morning, so we had to be at the airport for like 3. Right at this point, it's late. So I'm like, "Okay," and he was like, "Bonne nuit," which is in French is like, "Have a good night," and then we obviously never spoke, never saw each other again. I like stalked him online though, just because I was like, with the little information I knew about him, I was able to find him.
Oh my God. Were you
But
like
there's
looking
gonna
at
be no
pictures
contact.
of his wife and kids?
Yeah, I was no, there's none. He even
There's
told
not.
me, he's like, I don't have a social media presence, which is true. He has a LinkedIn. So I guess he's a liar, but not in
Oh
partial
my
liar. But I
God.
was like, what is going on? It was just like, and it just, to me, it's like everything that night had to be set up so that that would happen. I had to be stood up, which has never happened to me. I had to go back to my hotel because I could have gone to any other bar in Tribeca or Fidei. I had to, like, everything had to be, like, it's like, what? It's hard to,
Well,
like, comprehend.
and I think it all goes back to the biggest thing, which is you had to have the mindset of, oh, well, I still have the night ahead of me. Like
Yeah,
you could have sulked, you could have called your friends being like, what's wrong with me? Like, why did I get stood up? Like, why did he unmatch me? You could have gone
yeah,
back home and ordered in Chinese food and watched a movie. And there's nothing wrong with that. But
no,
the better option is to say, okay, that happened. Like, I'm still dressed up and out. Why don't I like have a night, even if it's treating myself to a glass of wine, taking myself on a date?
exactly. And I think that more people should adopt that mindset when they get ghosted, when they, it's not a personal thing. It's like these
No.
people are doing this because of something in them that's unhealed. And so why would you want to date someone like that anyways? It's like the universe is like telling you like this is no good for you. And
Mm-hmm.
they're literally redirecting you. I mean, in my case, not to something better that night, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like
Right.
in general,
Wow.
like it was just
Oh
like,
my God.
I was like, what is going on? And then because I have my YouTube channel, I kind of was like, do I talk about this or do I brush it under the rug? And I was like, no.
Mhm.
Like, I know I'm going to put this out there and I'm going to get a lot of hate, but this is what happened to me. And I don't want,
Mhm.
like, my channel is about being transparent and like, this is my dating journey. And if things that are not, that are frowned upon are not talked about, well, then I'm not being authentic, you
Absolutely.
know?
And that brings up a question that I wanted to ask you was like, do
Mhm.
you feel or did you feel any guilt around sleeping with a married man or no? Because what's complicated about this situation, and this happens all the time, you didn't know.
I didn't
So
know.
you didn't do
No,
anything wrong at
no,
all.
no. And it's
But
not
it
like,
sucks.
yeah, I know. Did I feel guilt? I feel like it's easy to blame yourself, but I didn't know. And I'm not the married one. And I know that's
Mhm.
maybe putting the blame on someone else. But in this situation, it's like I just I went with where the night took me. And like,
Mhm.
so do I feel guilt? That's not my business. Do you
Right.
know? It's
I
not. That's between him and his wife. And like, that's just not my business.
I agree.
Had I known and I like, and I went for it, that's different. But I
Mhm.
didn't know. So I can't blame myself. I'm not going to walk around with that guilt of like, well, I should have known. Like, there's nothing I could do. Like you
There's
said, the
nothing
damage
you
was
can do
done.
other than own it. Like you said, like, this is something that happened to you and it's a story you have to share, and, like, it's a wild story, and,
Yeah.
like, I think it's a story that when you look back at your single years in your 20s, you're gonna be like, "I can't believe that crazy thing happened to
Right.
me." You didn't do
Right.
a bad thing. You did,
No,
like, something
exactly.
that was spontaneous and fun and ended up being twisted.
Basically. But it's just these things do happen to people in their single life, and you got to just push it aside and get back out there.
Yeah.
You could like be in bed the next day and hate yourself for doing that. And it's like, no, just go about your life, And the crazy thing is that the next day I went out again, and that like another crazy story happened to me. So I went out on a date with somebody else, and he showed up. And
Off to a good start.
yeah, exactly. It's a start. And so we went to the Roxy Hotel, and then he went to the washroom at the end of the night. And another guy comes up to me while my date is in the washroom. And he's like this guy from Sweden. He's like this football coach from Sweden who's visiting New York and staying at the Roxy Hotel. And he comes up to me and he's like, "Do you want to get a drink?" And in the middle of him asking that, my date comes back upstairs.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, "What is going on?" My date's like, "What's going on here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I like didn't know what to say." So I was like, "Oh, he's just a tourist, like visiting, like what do I? It's not my like I didn't do anything,
Right,
But
again, like, you didn't approach another man while your date was in
no,
the bathroom.
I was like on my phone too. I was like looking through my TikTok, like whatever. So my date starts getting like angry and goes berserk. And the other guy's like, I didn't know. But you know what? When I think about it, I'm like, that other guy coming up to my date showed me that my date has issues that he needs to work through, and I probably shouldn't be with this man. Because if
Yeah.
another man, if a guy's gonna be threatened by another man, probably not the right man. A real man is not gonna be threatened, right?
Yeah, you very quickly saw a side of him that didn't work for you, and it's not like this guy intentionally tried to poach your date, like, he could've just been like, "Oh, man, like, we're on a date. You gotta go. Sorry." He could've
Right,
been, like, calm and rose to the occasion, been like, "Sorry, bud, she's a little busy right now," but
right,
instead, he let it really get to him.
right. And it was like a first date too. And so for me, it's like, whoa, like that's a lot of possessiveness on a first date that like I'm not your property.
Mhm.
And I was like, whoa. But it was 2 nights in a row where I was like, what is going on? I can assure you my Tuesday night was better or whatever, but like still, like it's like, what is going on? That's why it's like you need to like you can't control what's gonna happen to you in dating. That's one thing I've realized. But the one thing that you can control is how you react to these situations. And so if you react in a negative way, you're going to attract more negativity. But if you react in a positive way, you'll get like more positive things coming to you, And it's like, that's kind of how I look at dating. And I want people that watch my channel to react to things like this. You can't
Yeah.
control it.
Have you always been outgoing and, like, easy to approach somebody, or is that something that's come with putting yourself out there and dating?
No, I feel like I've always been this way. So, I mean, it's not like dating's been easy per se, but I think the difference is that the the second that I shifted my mindset on dating, that's when things started to really, you know, become better for me. Like, besides those 2 dates, I've been dating a lot in the last 6 months, and I can honestly say I've never really had a bad date
Mhm.
because I feel like I've aligned myself more with people that are for me, and while it didn't work out, I've gone on so many good dates that well, that's what happens when you do the work. And that's what I want to try and teach people. Do you know that you need to be on a healed level or not even healed because healing is a process. You're never going to be healed. You're never going to be like, a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to make sure that I'm at my best to be able to date." Like, no. People you grow with other people. There should be no like oh, I'm gonna like that's an excuse. People who are like, I'm
Mhm.
gonna wait and then I want to like achieve all of this in my life before I did. No, you know, I feel like I've heard that so many times, and I'm always like, that's an excuse. Like, I don't know. Have you heard that from people too?
All the time. When I lose 10 pounds, I'll date. When I
Yeah.
graduate from this program, I'll date. Like once I finish this job and start another job, I'll date. You know, when I move to a nicer apartment, I'll date. Like everyone comes up with excuses of things that are currently wrong with them that are holding them back, but it's really just your mindset that's holding you back. And I understand some of us are less confident than others. And the idea of going on dates and putting yourself out there to be rejected is really scary. But you have to do it. You have to force yourself to do it. And the more you do it, the easier it gets.
For sure. And I feel like the rejection part of it, like if you're a guy and you go up to 20 girls at the bar and 19 of them say no, sorry, or whatever, like you're gonna find that one person that accepts you
Mhm.
for who you are. And it's like, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
Rejection will become like, okay, that girl did me a favor. That girl also did me a favor. Like it's really just a mindset thing. And dating is, like I say on my channel, dating is a sport. Like you just need to go and put yourself out there. You know, you can't be going on one date a month and then expect to like find somebody. You just can't do
Mhm.
it. You know,
Yeah.
and like a lot of men criticize me for this on my channel, for like serial dating or like going on a lot of dates in a month. And it's like, no, like that's the way it should be done, because you're not like, you have to get into the momentum of dating. And the more you date, the more you can compare and contrast people. Like, I don't know, what was your kind of like view on how many dates you should go on a week when you were single?
I never had a set number of like too little or too many, but
Right.
I know I definitely attached my worth to like whether or not somebody was interested in me.
Right.
So if I wasn't going on dates, then I was feeling less than because I wasn't finding somebody to like or finding somebody who would like me. I definitely had weeks where I would go on like probably 2 to 4 dates a week just because that's
Hmm.
how it happened. And I did get judged by my friends for that. And I was like, okay, well, at least I'm trying. Like, I'm trying to find somebody. But at the
Exactly.
same time, I think the majority of the times that I was like hyper dating and so fixated on dating, that was when I wasn't there yet. Like, I wasn't ready.
Sure.
I hadn't taken the time yet to heal and to stop dating the same exact guy every single time,
Right.
you know?
Right.
So I was not in a position where even if I had like, found like a good match, I wouldn't have been able to make it work with them. But when I met Jake, I definitely like was talking to other people, and I think I was like 2 or 3 dates in with somebody else when I met him.
Right.
So I definitely feel like you don't have to set rules for yourself, but you just have to do what works. Like if you feel like I know a lot of people will try and date multiple people at once so they don't get like too caught up with like
One
being
person.
obsessed with one person, especially if they're
Hmm.
anxious attached. I know other people who can only date one person at a time. And I've been on both sides of that spectrum. Do you ever find that people that you're meeting in person on dates, not on the YouTube channel, have heard about your dating activity and have judged you for it?
So it's funny because a lot of people are like, what do you tell people on a first date? Like what you do? And I'm like, I kind of see whether or not I feel like they can, not that they can handle it, but most people I do tell, because like the way that I go into dating also is like, this is me, this is what I do. You know, it's not my paying job yet. I work in fashion, but this is what I do. And if you're not going to accept that, then this is not the right relationship for me. And I
Mhm.
think you need to go into a date being like, just a lot of people hold back and they're like, I want to present my best self. And that's totally fine. Like to a degree, I definitely agree. But I think you should just be like, I don't know, like unfiltered, like it's just
Yeah.
because the right person will accept you for who you are from the start. And one thing that I really liked about your story is that you didn't follow the rules with Jake,
Mhm.
right? Whereas
Facts.
so many people, and it's like there's so many podcasts out there that every episode is about a rule about this, a rule about that. And it probably works for some people, but I don't agree. I think that if you want to text the guy, text him. If he likes you, he's going to be happy to hear from you. He's not going to be like, oh, this girl. Like, no, he's going to be happy. So just do it. Do you know? And if he's not happy and he runs away, well, he wasn't meant to be with you in the first place. And it's
Yep.
like, I feel like also in dating, if you play games, you're going to attract someone who plays games also. And it's going to be like this big mess.
Oh my God, it becomes such a spiral because if you're like, oh, well, he didn't respond for 3 hours. Now I'm going to wait 6 hours. Guess what? He could have been like in a meeting or giving a presentation or busy or taking a nap. And now if you waited 6 hours and he's like, oh, well, she didn't respond for 6 hours. Now I'm going to not respond till tomorrow. Then you're never going to see each other again. And that's one of the most frustrating things is people feel pressure to play the game because they think someone else might be playing it. But
Right.
nobody wants to be playing it. And
No.
like you said, like if someone doesn't accept you for who you are, they're not your person. They're not necessarily rejecting you because they don't like you or they don't like what you're putting out, but it's just not a fit. Like the example you gave earlier of the guy on that date who it kind of couldn't handle the fact that someone else was hitting on you. That's fine. There might be another girl who wants a guy like that, who wants a guy who can't fathom the idea of you talking to another guy. And
Exactly.
that guy needs to find the girl who's right for him. And you were
Right.
not it. It wasn't personal. It wasn't like, oh, this guy sucks and he needs to change his behavior. It's that it wasn't aligned with you.
Exactly. And in dating, it literally never has anything to do with you. Like other people's rejection or lack of effort or whatever, it has nothing to do with you. And that's what people have to realize. And then they have to like, I know it's like tough love, but then they need to move on from it. You
Mhm.
know, it's not like, oh, there's something really like wrong with you. They don't like the way you look or they don't like your weight or they don't like it has nothing to do with you. You know, it's just was not the right fit. And look at it from the flip side, like let's just say you continue going on dates with this wrong person and you get married and then you have to get divorced. Like that's not any better. You know, that's
Mhm.
worse. But it's
Exactly.
just, I don't know, the rules thing kind of like, that's one thing that I wanted to discuss with you because you didn't follow the rules and look what happened. And I don't believe in that. Do you know? Because it's just rules are games and the right relationship is not going to be a game.
Absolutely. And Jake and I talk about this often where had I followed the rules that like I had friends in the dating social
World. You
media
work with
podcast
Hinge,
world,
yeah.
yes, who were trying to like as a joke, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna like text the next guy you talk to. Like, we're
Like,
gonna make it
no.
work since you can't." And that guy
Yeah.
happened to be Jake. And Jake and I always think back to the advice that they were giving me and what they were telling me to say and how they were telling me to act. Jake's seen those exact texts and he's like, I never would have continued dating you if you behaved that way.
Yeah,
And thank
exactly.
God I ignored all of their advice. Like they kept yelling at me. They're like, Anna, like this is only going to work if you take our advice or if like you send us a screenshot before you
No.
respond. And I'm like, well, I don't like the things that you're telling me to do. I would never behave like that. I'm not a 5-year-old.
Right. No,
Like
exactly.
it's so ridiculous. And like you said, and like I've said, like sure, it might work for some people, but there's no one size fits all in dating. So what works for some people, or what works for a friend of mine isn't necessarily going to work for me, isn't necessarily going to work for you. Like we all have to figure
No.
out what works for each of us. And that's the biggest problem with the rules is they unempower you to do what feels right for you.
Exactly, and then you're always, like, on edge too, like, "Oh, before date 3, I can't do this." It's like, no, just do what feels right in the moment, listen to your intuition because no
Mhm.
one else is on that date with you, no one else is having the conversations, no one else knows this man that you're talking to, so their advice is invalid, in my opinion. Do you know? They
I
don't know
I
the
agree.
connection you have. They've never met this man. They've never talked to him. Just you know what's right. Like you feel it and your body reacts to it emotionally. So if you feel safe in a relationship or like being in someone else's presence, you know that. If you don't feel safe, you also know that. So
Yeah.
listen to what your body's telling you and just don't follow the rules. Like it's just I hate the rules so much.
You and me both.
It's like,
You and
it's
me
just not
both.
healthy too. I don't feel like that's healthy advice to be giving to people.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. You mentioned before that sometimes you'll go on more than one date in a night.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? Because I'm sure everyone's wondering, first of all, like, how do you internally manage that? And number two, where are all these dates coming from?
Right. Okay. So I like to be kind of intentional about dating. So I do use apps and then I try and also meet people in person. Um, I will say that like on my channel, which is I never talked about it, but the Talia dating like club, basically it's like I basically talk about how like I call it the dating Olympics because dating is a process and dating is a sport. I was joking about my friends and I called it that one day and they're like, you should use that. I'm like, okay. So
Very timely.
yeah, exactly. So I will say it only really works in New York for me. When I'm dating here in Montreal, it doesn't work so well. Just logistically, it's harder to do that. But in a city like New York, where there's a lot of people and a lot of date requests, it's dating in New York's overwhelming in that sense. It's fun, but there's too many people like to fill up a schedule, right? But it works out too. So like I've been on like, 2 dates a day before, and I kind of have to like plan it so the second date is close to the first date so I can run there. So I'll do like dinner and then I'll do drinks with someone after, but it's like it's a lot, and it's like, but at the same time you kind of want to maximize the time that you have. And because I
Mhm.
travel back and forth, I sort of feel like the person that I'm meant to be with is not necessarily in Canada. I have a feeling, or my intuition is telling me that they're in New York, just because my
Mhm.
dating experiences in New York have honestly just been so much better, and I feel like I connect with people more there. But do I recommend the dating Olympics? Yeah, I mean, why not? It's fun. You get to meet a lot of new people. And, so what I'll do is like, I'll do one date from the first rounds on Me app, and then I'll follow it up with a Hinge date after. Or I'll do one date from like one of the apps, and then I'll go to like a singles event after.
Mhm.
I'll try and like
Have you
juggle.
ever been in the position where you're on your first date of the night? Let's say you're having dinner
Mhm.
and it's running too long and you're going to be late
Yep.
for the next date, or on the flip side, have you been in the position where you have not wanted it to end
Yes.
and you have to leave?
Yes. Basically, like I've been in like both of those positions combined. And I was like, okay. Like I told the guy that I need to go meet a friend after, which not untrue. It's just the person is a friend until they're not.
Mhm.
But and I didn't want the date to end because it was a really good date. We'd done dinner and we had a lot in common and a lot to talk about. And I was like, okay. Like the second date ended up being good too, but then I found out the guy was like a psycho, kind of like a possessive psycho after that. And I was like, whoa. So I kind of regret not staying on the first date for longer, but you never know,
Mhm.
Have you ever done 2 dates in one day?
I don't think I have. I don't
No,
think I'm cut out for that.
it's a lot,
I
It's definitely.
yeah.
I also think that when you're single, it's also about trying different things. So, like on my channel, I've been to speed dating, I've been to singles events, I've been to like the time left dinners, which is where you go.
Mhm.
Yeah, you go to basically for people who don't know, you go to a dinner with five strangers, and I was like, "Can you find love at a time left dinner?" And you know what? I ended up meeting a guy there, and we ended up going on a few dates. It didn't
That's
work out,
awesome.
but it was a fun experience. You can meet someone anywhere. That's also kind of what I want to push is that like you could be in line at Whole Foods and meet someone.
Yeah.
But you
No,
should
I
use
mean
the apps and then go out and like even you know what? One of the things that I say, especially if you live in like a big city like New York or LA, go to a bar by yourself. People always end up
mhm.
talking to you.
Yeah, 100%. I think you are doing so many things that I've tried so hard to say, like, okay, you don't have to rely on the apps. Like, go to events, go sign up for a club, like, go speed
Mhm.
dating, go do these things. And a lot of people are just so afraid to go to something alone or to sign up for a speed dating event for the first time because they feel like it's weird or it feels so unnatural. What advice would you give to somebody who is afraid to put themselves out there in one of these types of
Right.
situations?
I think there's like also kind of like a stigma around like singles events in a weird way. Like people are like, "Oh, like why would I do that?" Like cuz the apps are just so normal to people now that
Mhm.
like speed dating is like this old thing that like weirdos show up to. Like that's kind of what I thought before too. And then I went and I'm like, "You know what? I ended up making girlfriends at speed dating, believe it or not." Do you know? And then I have like more single friends, which as you get older, it's hard to find. But
Mhm.
advice that I would give, I think that, yeah, you can't just rely on the apps. That's why I genuinely feel like, yeah, if there's different clubs that you can join and also doing things alone, like every speed dating or singles event that I've been to, everyone was there alone. Like
Mhm.
no one came with a friend. Do you know? So if you think you're the only one, trust me, you're not. And so just
Absolutely.
do it. Honestly, I know it's hard to like put yourself out there, but once you do it once, you're going to be like that wasn't so bad, and then you're going to continue doing it. And also that one thing that you're saying no to or that you're scared to do, your person could be at that event. And you're
Yeah.
saying no and you're passing up on that because of your
Yeah.
fear. Like every
And I
like and I there's like this stupid saying that like everything you want is on the other side of fear, but it's true. It really is.
Yeah, and I love that you said that at one of these events you even made girlfriends, because I think that's something that's so special and unique about A, going to events alone, and B, going to dating events, is because you could end up becoming friends with the other girls there, the other guys there, and maybe there's not somebody at that event for you, but maybe one of the people you become friends with has a friend or is a coworker that they
Exactly.
want to set you up with. You have
Exactly.
nothing to lose and everything to gain by going to these events. And guess what? If you think it's weird or, you know, untraditional or whatever, who
Get
cares?
over it.
Get over it, because
Yeah,
everyone is a little nervous to go, especially their first time, but they're all going there because they're serious about finding somebody. And those are the people you want to
exactly.
surround yourself with.
Exactly. And that's one thing that exactly like you said, like on the apps, it's like hard sometimes because you don't know if someone's serious or not. Like you'll go on a date with them and then you wasted your time getting ready and then they say something sexual on the date and you're like, whoa, like you and I are not looking for the same thing. But people who are going to singles events, they're spending their money
Hmm.
to go to be at these events. And a lot of them are not cheap, right? You're dishing
Hmm.
out like $100 on the ticket and then you're buying a few drinks. Like it's a night where you're going to spend a lot of money. These are people who are serious. And so you never know who's going to be there. And
Yeah.
it's like that literally could be like you're like I don't get it when people are like, "Oh, but like just go. Trust me." Like, take our advice, go, and I guarantee someone that's listening to this will find their person from like a singles event or speed dating or just something. And especially if you live in New York City, there's so many singles events every week.
Yeah.
There's no
They're all
excuse.
over. You have to look for them.
Yeah, but it's go on Eventbrite. There's so many there. Follow like dating podcasts. There's always people like, message one of us and I can
Hmm.
give you a whole list of stuff in New York City.
Yeah.
It's
Love
just
it.
there's no excuse. I think
There's,
people the second you put yourself out there, it'll pay off for you.
hmm.
It
Yeah.
really will.
Yeah, and it
I don't
might
know.
be like a domino effect where you go to an event and you know what, you realize it wasn't as scary as you thought. You didn't meet somebody there, but you got your first one out of the way. So maybe the next event you go to, you meet somebody you go on a few dates with, it doesn't work out, but you feel a little more confident. And then the next one you go to, maybe you meet somebody or maybe you meet a great new friend who wants to set you up with their brother. Like it will pay
Exactly.
off.
And I think the thing about confidence too is the more that you do something, like the second you back out of things you want to do, your confidence level is going to shoot down. But the more that you
Mhm.
say yes to things, that's literally how confidence is built. The more you
Yeah.
push yourself to do things and you say yes and you don't back out, the more confident you're going to be.
Yeah.
And I think
Because you
that's
realize
so
you
important to
can do it.
realize.
You're capable. You're able to do it. And guess what? It doesn't
Exactly.
suck.
Exactly. If I can do it, it's not that scary. Trust me. And I've gained so much more by going to these events than not going.
Yeah.
I could sit at home and watch a movie and not, but then what am I gaining from that? Worst
Absolutely.
case, you don't meet someone, it's a cool night out, like a cool place, you have a good drink or two, like there's nothing to lose from this. So I
Yeah.
definitely recommend it, especially when people get like dating app fatigue now. And it's
Mhm.
like just if that's you, find other ways to meet people. And also, there's like a vibe check in person too that you get instantly, where sometimes it's really hard on an app. Like, I've been on dates before with people from an app where like the banter was there over the app, and then it's just like so disappointing in person. They can't, like, the banter was just not there. And I was like, what? Like, was I talking to the same person? But it becomes then that's like disappointing kind of. And so, you go to singles events, you see this right off the bat.
Mhm. You're almost
So
you're skipping a step. You're
exactly.
saving yourself time by meeting somebody in person.
Exactly, and worst case, it's a networking event for you,
Yeah. That's one
you
way to
know?
look at it too. If you don't wanna look at it as a
Exactly,
dating event, it's a networking event or it's practice.
exactly, dating mindset is everything. It
Yep.
really is, you know? So all those girls that are crying on TikTok about how men are awful, just stop doing that.
Yeah. Exactly. They're
Because it's
not.
gonna
Some
snowball.
are. Some women are awful too, but
Of course. It's just,
Yeah.
it's people in general. It's nothing to do with men. And the
Yeah.
second that you're like, you know what, there's amazing men out there, you will find an amazing man. It's what you
Yep.
tell yourself. Like your words matter.
100%. That they do. This
Yes.
has been incredible.
Well, thank you
And
so much.
oh my God, no, thank you so much. There's so much in here that, first of all, like, I feel so proud just like knowing that you have been a listener and hearing your mindset, hearing some of the things that you say and some of like the theories you have. Like, it seriously makes me so proud because I want to instill all of these things into so many people's brains, and just seeing you put them into practice and really like living your best, truest life just makes me so like happy for you and for this community. And it just shows what's possible when you do change your mindset. So thank you for being you, and thank you for sharing all of that
Well,
with
right
me
back
and
at
with
you.
us.
You are not the norm when it comes to like dating podcasts, you know. Your advice is for real people. And it's your advice is literally just be yourself, put yourself out there. It's so simple. Whereas other
Yeah.
people just overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
thank
I
you
try
so
not to
much.
do that. Thank you. But before we go,
Yes.
final question. I don't
Yes.
know what's going to come out because there's been so much of it in this episode,
Yes.
but
Jam
what
packed.
is the best piece of dating or relationship advice you've ever received or have to give?
Ooh, good question. So I guess it just goes back to the dating mindset. It really is something that I try and instill in everybody is that like, you know, dating is a process. It will take time and you will go through everything, right? From good to bad to whatever. But if you stay positive and you realize that every person that it doesn't work out with is literally one step closer to finding the person that you're meant to be with, that keeps dating exciting and it also raises your vibrations and you will manifest your person just by thinking that. So stay positive, never give up. And I mean, there's so many success stories of people who have found their person because they didn't give up, you know?
No, 100%. I love it. Don't give up and you'll be a success story too.
Exactly. So thank
Talia,
you
thank
so much for
you.
having me.
Thank you. Remind everyone, where can they find you? Where can they find your YouTube channel?
Right. So on YouTube, the Talia Dating Club. That simple. I'm on
Thank
TikTok as well under the same name. And on Instagram, it's my personal Instagram, Where in the World is Talia, where I post some dating related stuff, but it's really more just my day to day life.
I love it. Well, your day-to-day life sounds awesome. So, guys, follow her. Ugh, I love Instagram. It sounds so much nicer when you say it.
Does it? Is my
Yeah.
Canadian accent.
Yeah, I love it. I've loved like every second that it's shined through.
Thank you
Amazing.
so
Guys,
much.
follow
This has been
Talia, check
amazing.
all of her stuff out, and stay tuned for next episode.